Good morning. This is the TCG Pro Show. Welcome to the show this morning. This is where you come to get expert knowledge from local service providers about everything real estate and anything regarding buying and selling a home. I'm Brad Williams. I'll be your host this morning. I'm joined by my co-host, Don Williams.
Good morning.
The name's not lost on us. He is my dad. And this morning we have two very special guests with us. We're super excited to sit down with. We like to call this guy not just a professional relationship, but a friend and partner in the business. We have Simon Shaw and Chuck Potts of Pest-X Exterminating. Welcome to the show this morning, guys.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having us.
So this show is live, and that means we encourage your feedback. We want your questions, your comments. We want to hear about it. We'll answer them if we can on the show. So let's just jump in. I guess go ahead.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to kind of do a disclaimer here to get started. I've known Simon for, goodness, how long, Simon? Maybe 30 years?
Yeah, 30 years, I'd
30
say.
years.
Sure.
And, you know, he's not only been a great friend, but, I've always been able to depend on him. We've done a lot of business together through the years, and one thing that I've always appreciated about you, Simon, is your honesty and integrity, and that just goes a long ways with me, and so I'm so glad that you're here this morning.
Well, thank you for having us. We appreciate it. We both know, from our own backgrounds that honesty and integrity are what drives a business, for the long term.
Absolutely.
And we certainly have made a commitment early on that we want to be here for the long term. We're local guys, and this is just our community that we live in, and we want to invest in our community, and that's just a big part of who we are.
So how long have you been in the pest business?
I actually got in the pest control business in 1985. Got out of college in 83 and worked in another industry, in the retail industry, for a little while, and realized I didn't really like it. Wanted to get into another business, and it said it required some sales experience. So my brother-in-law actually managed a pest control business, and he hired me as a salesperson just to get some sales experience, just to satisfy that requirement. And once I got in the business, I really, really liked it and just decided to stay, and then worked with a national company for a couple of years, and then ended up working for an independent and purchased the independent out actually 30 years ago on March 1st of this year. So I actually owned Pest-X now for 30 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's really close. You just celebrated your 30-year
30th anniversary for Pest-X.
So Pest-X was actually something that somebody else came up with, and you bought it from. It was a local business.
It was a local business, right? It had a different name, and I actually managed a branch of the company for this gentleman. And it was the Greensboro branch is where I managed, and when the business got to a certain level, he just decided that he didn't want 3 branches, so he just sold me the little branch, was just a glorified pest control route, essentially is what it was when I purchased it. And today we've got about 24, 25 employees, and so we've grown quite a bit, and but it's been a very slow and consistent growth. We've tried to hire the right people, and just got some quality folks. We do more than just the breath test sort of employment application. We want to make sure that people really reflect our values, and we try to hire people that we would want in our homes and our parents' homes and things like that. So we're very jealous about who we bring on board with our company.
With that in mind, introduce your partner here.
This is Chuck Potts, and Chuck's an industry veteran. He came to work for us several years ago, and he is our operations manager. So Chuck is taking us to the next level professionally. It's allowed us to grow into 3 branches now. We've got a branch in Kernersville, North Carolina. We got one in Winston-Salem, and we've opened one up in Burlington. And Chuck has been very, very instrumental in getting a lot of the footprint and the background for our company and all the things that we need in order to be able to grow, and then it's set up a framework for us to be able to grow into different markets. So Chuck can tell us a little bit about your background if you'd like to.
Sure.
You came with quite a bit of experience when he came to us.
Yeah, I probably have about 20 years total experience off and on in the industry, and got my start back in Atlanta when I lived out there working with some of the national companies. And then eventually, over the years, went into business with a partner in Atlanta, and so we ran a company out there for about 8 years. Mm-hmm. And got out of the business for a little while, but it was in my blood, and eventually got back. I met Simon when I moved back to North Carolina, And over the years, we kept open communications, didn't really have a position to get back in the industry, but then one developed, and the rest has been history. So, yeah, glad
So
to be
how
back.
long have you been with Pest-X?
Going on my 4th year, I believe.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
good.
Yep.
Wow. You always have something to ask next. So, just kind of a random question here. What's your favorite thing about being in the pest control industry? Either one of you, both of you.
I'll start. Actually, I love the customers, the interactions that we have on a regular basis. Even though I'm more behind the desk these days than in the field, just really enjoy talking with customers. And so that's really what attracts me to the service industry, providing service.
That's real important with being in the position that you are to like people, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
to
It does
enjoy
help,
people.
yeah.
Well,
Hopefully they like me.
does, yeah. I think that's what makes companies thrive is when they really care about the people that they serve. So
Exactly. I like the variation of what we do daily. I've never been a behind the desk kind of guy. You know, I've always been somebody that likes to just get out, get in the vehicle, and go to a customer's home. And even though everybody may have a termite problem along the way in their life or at their home once a lifetime in a home, you know, just the fact that you're there, every situation is different. You know, every customer is different. Everybody has a different level of anxiety and concern. And the fact that we have a remedy for them and we can control their issue, if it's termites or pest control problems, things like that, you know, we can take care of it. But, you know, you treat every customer individually, and it's nice because you're always dealing with a little different problem with a little different person. So I just like the variety of what we do. And I always feel like we're doing something that really helps. I don't feel like we're in an industry that's just doing something that people can get by without. I mean, you know, if people have termites or water issues in their home or anything like that, then we can supply a remedy, and we feel good about what we do because we really feel like if we don't come in and protect their home, then their home's going to lose value. There's going to have, you know, more problems where you're going to have to hire different contractors to come in and do repair work and things like that. So I really feel like there's a great value in what we do as a profession. So, and it's something that, you know, ideally I never would have thought I would have been in the pest control service business, but it has really given me just a real value in my career. You know, I look back at 30 years and think, wow, where's the time gone? But you know, our pastor this past Sunday was talking about when somebody's in their mid to late 50s, they're looking for a place to land their plane, you know. And I'm not looking to land. I'm like touchdown. I'm ready to keep going.
Touch and go.
We just opened up this branch in Burlington recently, and I mean we've got several more on the horizon that we're looking at, and you know, there's just an excitement. I have no desire to stop. I mean, and that comes from just the interaction that we have with other professionals like yourself and the homeowners. And golly, we really value our employees. We really try to have a family, and we really enjoy the relationships that we develop there. So it's just a big part of our lives, you know. So
I think you said a couple things there that resonated with me. And one is, you know, I think that's another big pillar to any long-term business is providing a solution to a real problem and real value. If you're not doing that, you're not going to be around for the long haul. And the second thing is, isn't that just a myth in our society that you're supposed to want to retire? I think that's for people that don't enjoy what they do. I think that's for people that are just, you know, pushing papers, you know, checking the boxes, trying to get to the end of the week. But when you really have passion about what you do, which we know you do, you know, it's why would you want to? I know Dad has no intention. He just loves working with me so much. He has no intention of retiring.
Absolutely.
So
That's
I don't just for the listener's sake that may not quite have a grasp of what all a pest control company does. Can you tell us a little bit about the different things that you guys offer?
sure. Go ahead, Chuck. Why don't you share that one?
All right. Well, we actually have quite a few services. We're not just a pest control company. We deal with solving water problems for customers in their crawl spaces. We even do insulation services that's pest control related. And then, of course, the standard termite and pest control services. So we have a variety of products that we can now offer. And again, it just comes from experience and exposure as we, grow in the business and see opportunities to help solve problems for our customers. We're already out there. We're already under the house. And we just felt that, keep adding services that build value and help the customers and so we're pretty varied right now.
We are. We found a lot of wildlife issues too from the pest control side that we realized that we needed to get more in the wildlife business. So we've been very involved in the wildlife business, and where we will, with raccoons and possums and bats and things like that over the years. It's just something that we kind of graduated into. We hired we purchased a little wildlife control company, and then we've kind of graduated into that a little more, and we've actually gotten about 5 wildlife damage control agents now that work for our company. So gone and got the certifications, and so it used to be when folks would have a snake issue or a bat issue, then we would refer them out, but we handle that internally now because so many of our customers have these issues, and a lot of customers don't really realize that they've got a wildlife issue. As you guys as professional inspectors know, you go in an attic and you see an attic full of guano from the bats,
right,
and or you see the grease rubs on the vents, on the exterior of the house, and you know that's what's you've got some activity there, and and having the bats in the attic. I mean, obviously nobody wants to coexist with bats.
That's a major health concern.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what's the strangest thing you've ever seen as far as wildlife in a home?
I guess snakes inside the home. Nobody likes that. We've seen snakes. We've seen bats in the house. No real horror stories. We had a situation a few years ago where some squirrels had gotten in a home when somebody was on vacation and had done a lot of damage. They had just gotten in there, and I guess they panicked. They couldn't get out. All the curtains were torn down, and just a lot of mess inside the house. Like somebody had come in and vandalized the home when they were gone.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. We get the emergency bat call at 3 o'clock in the morning that somebody's chasing a bat around with a tennis racket at 3 o'clock in the morning in their kid's bedroom. We've had those calls before. So they're all interesting when you get them, and they all require kind of a unique solution.
We hear possums
Yep.
can be pretty mean
They can.
when they're cornered in a crawl.
And they can be pretty frightening when you're crawling up under a house and all of a sudden you're face to face with a possum or anything that you're not anticipating, snakes or anything like it. We don't see a lot of snakes. Everybody thinks, well, you're in a crawl space all the time. There's snakes all the time. You really don't see them. They may be there, but they're probably more frightened of you than you are of them, and so they're hiding pretty well. So.
We know snakes are predominantly in a space where there's a food source.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's not mice and rodents and things in your crawl space, the snakes really don't have a reason to be there. I mean, is that a fair?
Yep.
Yeah.
I got to tell a story.
Okay.
Just real quick. We had when we were living there on Salisbury Street, we had a flying squirrel come down the chimney and came into the house. I mean, I hadn't been around flying squirrel. They're pretty freaky looking little critters or whatever. And this little guy, he scampered through the house, got in. We actually cornered him into like the laundry room. And it was quite a sight trying to actually catch this little guy without actually. I put leather gloves on, and all this kind of thing. But it was quite an event at the house.
You sound like Clark Griswold in Christmas Vacation when the squirrel comes in on the Christmas tree there. So it's quite funny. They had a production about that.
Yeah.
So with the pest control side of your business, what are the big threats that people face in this part of the country?
My experience is termites and damage. That's a big threat, and something I've noticed being coming from Georgia, coming up, it's still part of the South and North Carolina, but educating people, because I think a lot of people just don't realize the dangers and the amount of damages they can cause. So really have to work at educating them as well too with that threat. And then other than that, going to the wildlife department and, things that wildlife or varmints can bring to somebody's home, can definitely be detrimental, such as diseases, rabies, things like that. So, again, just education, good training with our guys to take care of these problems quickly.
Along that line, we did on-site video with you, Simon, and you showed us a 2x4 stud. And if you haven't seen that video, you need to look it up. I mean, if you can probably give reference to how they can get to that.
Yeah,
but it was pretty incredible what termites had done to them. I mean, it was basically just shredded.
Exactly.
How they had eaten that piece of wood up. So,
well, I think what was most interesting about that was where you guys actually found the damage. It was so minimal. I mean, it was a couple of little splintered pieces at the bottom, but most of the damage was completely hidden
Right.
from what was accessible. And I think that's the big danger with termites, right? Is they can do most of their damage and you might not have any idea that it's going on. It's not necessarily apparent.
That's right. And if you see a telltale sign or not, it's best to have a professional company come out and inspect, because we are really trained. I mean, not just us, but we share this field with a lot of respected professionals. I mean, you give a lot of guys credit. I mean, I've got a lot of friends in the industry, but we spend a lot of time and a lot of training, learning exactly the little telltale signs. And it's really a great idea to have other folks, or have a professional other than yourself check a home for termites, because there can be just minor, just a quarter inch of evidence that we might see somewhere, and it can lead us to further investigation, and we can determine if you've got more of a problem than you think. What's always been interesting to me in the industry is when you speak with somebody and you say, would you like for me to give you an inspection? And oh no, my husband takes care of that, and the real do-it-yourself guy.
Right.
And not, I'm a do-it-yourself guy, but so these guys will, I'll do it myself. So you never get a chance to look at the house. Then when they go to sell the home, then it's required, that you have a professional company come in and do an inspection. That's where we find a lot of our problems, because this guy's been taking care of his house himself, and he just doesn't have the professional expertise and training to know exactly what to look for. Because as you mentioned in that video, as far as the stud that we found, it was really, really solid where, an average person would look. But once we found this little bit of evidence, we did more investigation, and it really is an incredible piece of wood. That's why I saved it, because it is so solid on the bottom, but at the top, like I mentioned, it's almost like broom straw.
Yeah, it is.
It's so weak it can't even support itself, so it just flops over. So that's why I would really encourage folks to have that, have a routine sort of professional pest inspection, because it really it can get away from you quickly.
Right. If anybody's interested in seeing that video, there's a couple places you can find it. It's all over our social media, but you can also go to our media hub. It's theclosingguys.com/TCG. And we have a whole video on eastern subterranean termites, and Simon walks us through how they get in your home, how they do damage, what he looks for. And I think, if anything, it just really promotes the value of a pest inspection. Would you agree to say that prevention in this field is much, much cheaper than coming back and fixing it?
Oh, I would say absolutely. Unfortunately, just like all of us, even with the doctor, we put things off, and by the time you deal with them, it's a big deal. And that's very similar with termites. And prevention is absolutely the best way to mitigate those costs and risk later down the line. So I would highly encourage it. Why wait until you have the damages? It's a lot cheaper to treat before you have the problem.
So what are the steps for preventing for termites while we're on this subject?
Okay, I'll take that one. Well, obviously, everything starts with an inspection and with somebody that's trained, and also knowledge of construction, and then we can customize generally a treatment plan that works. So every house is treated differently. We have so many different things in our bag, or so many different tools to treat nowadays. We have the traditional chemical barriers that we can apply. The chemicals that we use, or products that we use, have different modes of operation than what we used to have. And then we also have the bait systems, where we work at eradicating the termites and eliminating the colony altogether. So a lot of times we'll use that in conjunction with each other to create a nice package to protect those homes.
Are the treatment, the chemicals, are they safe for the surrounding environment around the house?
Yeah, typically they are. The new generation chemicals that we use today are a lot better than what we used to have in the industry. I don't go quite as far back to the chlorodyne days, but I get close to it. But yeah, a lot of these things, they're a little less persistent, which is, good for the environment. They have to be done a little more frequently, but they are generally safer for the treater and for the consumer.
So I'm a homeowner. I want to make sure that I'm staying ahead of this. How often does my house need to be treated?
Well, typically, if you do a baiting system, it's baited or, quote, treated one time, and then there's a renewing and recurring inspection and bait inspection that we do throughout the year, and it just recurs annually. And as long as the baiting system is in place and the termites can still feed on that, you do it one time and you just keep that active with an actual inspection and rebating every year, then you're or multiple times during the year we come out and do the inspection. Generally about 3 times per year we come and just do the actual, we check the bait stations themselves, and if there's activity in there, because what we're trying to do is get the termites to feed on wood outside the house, not wood inside the house. So we put a bait in there, and so it attracts them to that. And if we see some activity, then we rebait, and so we keep them on the perimeter. And then eventually, the baits that we and the products that we use will actually eliminate the colony in the yard. So that takes care of the actual problem. Now, if you have a liquid treatment, like Chuck mentioned, if that was a standalone treatment, then we recommend doing that initially, and then we come back and inspect that annually. But that has about a 5 or 6 year life that we feel really comfortable giving you assurance, and for us to take the liability from an actually company that's treated and provides the warranty on the home. Then we generally encourage and recommend a treatment after about 5 or 6 years on that. But one of the products Chuck mentioned years ago was Chloridane, and I have been in the business long enough to remember we used Chloridane. And Don, you probably remember when you were in full construction, people were doing termite soil treatments with Chloridane. Part of the problem with Chloridane was it never broke down. So, I mean, it would be here 50, 60 years later. And so the idea is you treat an area that's got a building in it today, you remove that building, and it turns into a playground. Well, you've got a soil that's remaining, or a chemical that's holding in that soil for many years to come. So, I mean, that could be a playground today where it was a commercial building 50 years ago. And so the products today are designed, once you put them in the soil, they essentially start degrading immediately. So after a period of time, there's no trace of them. So it's much better for the environment, and responsibly for a homeowner, it's probably not as good a product as was out there 30 plus years ago. But people are more concerned about the environment today, and I certainly can appreciate that. And we're environmental stewards. I mean, a lot of the our responsibility is ensuring that the products that we put out are safe for the environment. We have some green products. We do mosquito services and things like that where we have green products. Now, that's not our standard MO, so to speak, of using the actual green product when we do mosquito. But if somebody has a request, then we have that in our toolbox, as Chuck was talking about. So
I might add, if I don't mind, just
Please.
to follow up just a little bit, but to your original question, yes, the chemical barriers do have to be reboosted from time to time, and as Simon mentioned, about every 5 to 6 years, depending on the home and the circumstances, we might want to refresh that exterior. But with the bait systems, those can be run perpetually as long as they keep them renewed, keep them serviced. You can't not service them or they don't do any good. We're always working at controlling them, so you don't have to do the bait systems but once. So that's really a good thing about the new bait systems that we have today. And even when the colony's eliminated, another couple of years down the road, new colonies are going to encroach on the property. So you're not done. You got to keep it going. As long as, any home in the South is going to be at risk all the time. But those systems keep working as long as they're serviced.
Yeah. So let's back up just a minute here. If you do an inspection and there's no evidence of termites, how often should you do a recheck to see if they have problems have developed?
if you have a problem a year down the road, then that was probably a good call to do it every year. If you don't have a problem, but every 5 years, then you might think that every year to have it inspected is maybe a little excessive. So it's hard to say. It's kind of like going to the doctor. I mean, how often should you go for the physical? We take our bodies to the doctor ideally once or twice a year for a physical. If somebody is not under contract or under warranty with us, we encourage people still to have an annual inspection. Mm-hmm. Termites, contrary to a lot of popular belief, they're not so voracious that they're just going to actually destroy a house in a year, right? I mean, but they can cause some damage. I mean, you guys have seen the termite damage, and you've seen the amount of damage that termites can do left unchecked for a long period of time. But it's kind of like having a small fire in the corner of your house. I mean, you may feel like you can control it, or should you call the fire department immediately? Things like that. I mean, obviously, you'd want to call the fire department, but so you don't want to let something get out of hand. So it would not be frowned upon to have an inspection once a year. To have someone come out and and do an inspection. But we annually inspect all the homes that we have under warranty at least once a year, and we go back more frequently if somebody had a concern. They said, well, I saw what I think was a swarming termite or something like that. Well, we'd go out and inspect for their interest and our interest.
That's great. So one of the things I mentioned is we definitely encourage your questions. I think we have one. What do we got?
So Teresa has asked what exactly is in the process of treatment, and I believe she was talking about termites. So what happens as a homeowner when you guys come out? What would that look like?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Restate the
Okay.
question, sir.
So the question is for a homeowner, what does it look like when a company like Pest-X comes out to treat for termites?
Okay, as far as the actual step-by-step process.
Yeah, just kind of
okay.
walk us through that real quick.
Okay. Well, again, kind of going back to an earlier statement, it's an excellent question, by the way, but every home's going to be different. Every construction's different. Every foundation's different. So each treatment's going to be a little bit different depending on how your home's built. But if we're talking just in the chemical sense barriers, the repellents, basically it'll consist of trenching or rotting around the exterior of the foundation. That's where we kind of start there. If it's a crawl space, we go under the home, we treat and trench around the piers, we trench and treat around the interior of the foundation from the crawl. And then if there's any contiguous slabs like a patio or even your garage, we want to vertically drill those areas and put termiticide under there to create a barrier so they can't get to the subfloor areas. So again, every home's a little bit different, but that's kind of the standard for chemical, as far as the chemical steps. Now, if it goes back to the baiting, it's just simply putting in bait stations at different intervals depending on the linear footage of a home, and we incorporate that into the landscaping as well too. And as long as we have those installed, we can keep monitoring, and that's about all you need for that. But some companies do a little differently. We might even do a little bit of both. So every company is going to be different on that.
When you guys go and treat a house, how do you decide whether you do a chemical barrier or a bait system?
Okay. Great question, and that's situational too. A lot has to do with the customer. Some people might not want to be exposed or have chemical around their home. We certainly understand that. So with those customers, we would probably work with a bait system. We may just do critical area treatments where needed so we can reduce the impact out into the environment. I'm sorry, I forgot the last part of your question. Could you?
Just deciding the difference between the two.
When to go which way or another. Yeah. Again, it has a lot to do with our interaction and questioning with the consumer. Just find out what's important to them, what's their concerns, and we just customize it that way. But both systems, no matter how we do it, are effective.
Okay.
And I'll add too that sometimes the property itself, the home itself, dictates that we can't physically get to a low area in the house. So that's where the baiting system would take over, and you'd say, okay, well, I can't physically get a treater back to the back corner of the house, so we're going to have to put a baiting system around this home. So that's part of it as well as what Chuck mentioned.
Or it might have a well that we need to avoid with chemical treatment, or near a body of water that's close to the home.
Okay.
So again, customize that, and we have so many tools in our box now that we can be flexible and still provide a good treatment.
So once you find damage, evidence of termites there, and you see damage, do you guys repair the damage?
No, we've elected not to get into that arena, as far as the structural damage repair. We have licensed contractors, in our company, but as far as electing to do that, we've just decided that we would not stay there. We would go ahead and take care of the actual event of the termites creating the problem, and then we would either turn it over to somebody like you to give a recommendation if you actually refer, or we've got a couple of contractors that we know that have done some work for some of our customers over the years, but we don't have a damage repair department in our company.
So we have a request to step through the process of when you're selling or buying a home. What is the termite inspection like?
All right, so I think that's a great question. Thank you for volleying that. The people watching this are primarily people interested or going through the home buying process, and a termite inspection is a really important part of that. So walk them through, what does that look like? You show up to the house for a termite inspection. What happens?
Okay, well, we've been doing those for 30 plus years, so very familiar with that. We work with buyers, we work with sellers, we work with realtors. So, in fact, years ago, Don, and you may remember this, the inspection initially was requested by the buyer. by the seller. And so what would happen, we would go out and do the inspection, maybe find a problem, and then report that back to the seller. The seller would get that problem eliminated and call an unsuspecting company to come back in and then get another inspection but from another company, and then not even see any evidence. So then the state came in and said, we need to switch this out, and let's let the buyers be the ones responsible for purchasing the inspection. So what we do, we get the phone call from either the buyer, or we get the phone call from the real estate professional. Occasionally we get one from a lender who realizes there's an inspection that's necessary to get the loan closed. So we have a few relationships with some of the lenders. And order comes into our office. We get it scheduled at a mutually convenient time with the interested parties if they want to be there. We always make ourselves available because we like to share that information at the time of inspection. I would imagine just like you guys like to.
Absolutely.
Sometimes
Yep.
it's better if they can be there. So we do the inspection. We've always got an extra crawl suit if anybody ever wants to crawl under the house with us. Rarely, very, very rarely does that ever happen. Maybe if you get in a duck walk tight crawl space, somebody will come under with you. But most of the time, we're doing that solo. We take, but we always have a large probing tool that we take, a really bright flashlight. Those are really, really important tools that we have to have, because you go in and you do the inspection, you check the foundation, you check the wood, and you're sounding the wood, just because, like we mentioned earlier about that piece of wood, really solid at the bottom, really hollow at the top. So a lot of it is visual, a lot of it is audio as well. So you hear it, you hear the sound of the wood, and you go around the entire perimeter of the house. You check the piers. Once you've completed the crawl space inspection or basement, essentially, that's the only difference between a crawl space and a basement.
Right.
You've got a slab and you got a little more height, but essentially it's the same thing. Then you go around the exterior perimeter. You check around the soil. You check any wood soil contacts around the house, and do that. And then when you're done, then you write the report up, and you list any evidence of a previous infestation or a current infestation. We view a current infestation as one that's got actually evidence of termites, but no evidence of prior treatment.
Okay.
Because as Chuck mentioned earlier, we do some drilling when you do a termite treatment. So there's generally, there's always some evidence that the home's been treated. You can always tell if the home's been treated typically. So that's part of it. Then we just write the report. And if we do find damage, Don, as you mentioned earlier, all we would do is it's not a structural damage report. This report is we just report evidence. So we're not going to say damage to 10 floor joists or damage to or structural damage. Our responsibility to the buyer is to let them know if there's any evidence, and then we'll let the pros like you guys go out and determine if that damage or that evidence has resulted in any real damage, because it's just not, because most of the companies just don't have the ability to qualify, what is actually structural damage to a house. That's why the professionals like yourself, as a true home inspector, would be able to tell.
So should the good point? Should the pest control be before, during, or after the home inspection?
I really am a fan of the pest inspector going first, because what happens so many times is you guys might go out and no disrespect to your industry, but you're not really qualified to do our inspections. I mean, you're not the trained pest control inspector. So what we do, we go out and we may find one powder post beetle exit hole or one carpenter bee exit hole, which does constitute damage, okay, or evidence. So we have to list that evidence. And if you've gone underneath and seen, you might not even notice that it's so insignificant, but nonetheless, we're required to report on that. So if we go out after you guys and we report that we found some evidence of carpenter bees or a little bit of termite evidence, then that's generally going to require you guys come back and reevaluate that. So really a better idea maybe for more expediency, particularly with closing or even saving your time as well, is to go ahead and get the pest inspection done prior, so you can see everything that maybe we've listed, and then that way you can say, okay, well, the pest control guy found this, and this, and he found it in these areas. So I'll be sure to really look closely there in case I need to render some sort of structural evaluation.
We've found it's even most valuable to us as home inspectors when you guys are out there just before us and we can catch you before you leave. And you guys can give us a rundown of what you've seen. And then we can go back and take a closer look at those areas. This is a real opportunity. I hope everybody heard what Simon just said, but this is a real opportunity to really increase the value you get from your pest and your home inspection by letting these guys work together. There's something I'm sure many of you are familiar with. We all have a reticular activating system. And what that means is what we're used to seeing, we tend to see more of. As home inspectors, we have to look at a lot of things, and looking for termite damage is not high on that priority list. It's not what we're taught to look for. So it becomes one of those things you're taking advantage of what each professional tends to look for and see most often. I think we have another question.
Yes, we have a Pest-X fan, Vicky, who says, "What makes termites find one house but not the right next to it house?"
So the question was, thank you, Vicky, for the question.
Yes.
The question is, what is it that makes termites find maybe one house but not a neighboring house?
Let me try. Yeah, I'll take a stab at it. Thank you, Vicki. Well, a lot of times termites are just random. There's not, we have conditions conducive that might promote activity and foraging in a yard. So if you're looking at two houses side by side, one's not meatier than the other to a termite. It just has to do with where the termites are underground and where they pop out, and they might follow maybe some moisture that's more in this yard than the other, and then so they're going to forage more in that area, and then eventually they're just going to bump into the house, the structure. They don't know the difference between a house and a tree. Okay, so I think it's very random from my experience, but conducive conditions can promote their activity in a yard.
Would you say that putting firewood next to the house?
That would be a big no-no. That will bring them. That
crawl
would be a
space,
great
storing wood
Yes.
in the crawl space, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be a conducive condition that would definitely promote them to be closer to the house.
Rotted
Absolutely.
stumps near the house.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And certainly moisture issues in a home tends to draw termites, is what we've seen.
Right. Yeah, it's a requirement for them. In addition to the wood, they need that moisture.
Yeah.
Back to the baiting that we talked about earlier. Is that safe for animals out and around the house?
So the question was, with the baiting system, is that safe for animals that are around the house?
The nice thing about the baiting, it's not only safe for animals, but it's also safe for humans, for children. These are in contained stations. If you can almost imagine like a tennis ball container, you've got a cylinder there that is placed in the soil. It's got a locking cap that we have a special key for, and there's certain different manufacturers of these products, but they all have their own individual keys. So it's essentially a lock system that we have the keys for. We open it up. We check what we call interceptors in there, which are just small pieces of wood. We check those for termite activity. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we put the bait in there, and then we close and lock the interceptor again. So it's very safe, And even if the product came in contact with a human, it's not like a contact poison or anything like that. It's something that an insect would have to consume, and then through a process called trophallaxis, which is kind of a gross thought. But what actually happens is they actually eat the material, and then they go down to the colony. Just the worker termite is up here gathering the food. So they go back down, and then they essentially regurgitate the food and feed the balance of the colony. That's a process called trophallaxis. But no, the products are very, very safe. The baiting is really probably the safest way to go as far as incidental issues like with humans or pets or anything like that.
That's a great point. We are about out of time. Did you have one more thing?
Well, I just wanted to give Simon the opportunity to kind of tell, in addition to what we've talked about, is there something about Pest-X that sets you apart from your competitors?
Well, I certainly think so. We are really, really, really customer-driven, customer-focused. We put a high priority on that customer experience. And you can just tell it by the amount of customer reviews that we have on our website, the amount of Google reviews that we get. Our whole staff is committed to excellent customer experience, and it really starts with me. I have got to really believe that delivering an excellent customer experience is important, and I've got to transfer that conviction and that feeling to my staff members. So we try to hire genuinely nice, caring people in our company that understand that what it is like to receive good customer service, and we want to have them deliver customer experience, and a customer service. So I would say that's really what sets us apart. And I think if you give our company a try and experience a Pest-X experience, then I think you'll see where we're coming from when we say that. We really back it up, and we've been really, really blessed to be in the business, like I said, for 30 years. And the reviews. I mean, if you're not taking care of your customers, you're going to get reviews, but they're not the ones that you want to see.
That's right.
So we're really, really serious about what we do, and it's just part of our culture there at work. And we treat even our fellow employees the same way. I mean, we know, and particularly in today's economy and in the environment today, even having employees work for you they're almost like customers too. I mean, you've got to treat those those employees just like you would a customer, because you're really fortunate to have quality people working for you.
Absolutely. I do. It's been a real pleasure having you on the show today. I'd like to reiterate again, we are proud to call Pest-X and Simon and Chuck and the rest of the team partners with the Closing Guys. We highly, highly recommend them. There were definitely a couple more things that I would love to have gotten to today, so maybe we can have you back and talk about water issues sometime.
Sure.
I think you have a lot of value to add there, especially for people buying a house. But in the meantime, if someone wanted to get in touch with Pest-X for an inspection or any of the other services you provide, how would they do that?
Tell them our contact
Call
list.
us. Yes, just give us a call.
What's the number?
Well, we have many numbers now, but we have an 800 number, and I don't have it off of memory. Sorry, guys. But our main line, if you don't, that would help.
Sure.
But
we've got-
that's the quickest way to get to us.
Yeah.
And then how can they find you online?
That'd just be www.pestx.com.
And that is pest-x.com,
Yes,
with that
right?
hyphen.
That's
Hyphen
correct.
X.
Yep. And,
dot com.
We've got, I can give you a couple of quick phone numbers for our Winston-Salem office.
Okay.
788-1112. Kernersville office is 996-5553. And our Greensboro number is 854-8044. And our Burlington office is 585-8282.
Yeah.
I don't know the 800 number.
No, I'm totally impressed.
Shoot, I was looking bad there.
People do not know phone numbers, but we'll make sure to put those in the comments, so don't feel like you guys had to remember that. Again, we have done a lot of awesome videos with these guys here, and we'd love for you guys to check them out. You can learn a whole lot more about termites and pest inspection. We have more to come. That's theclosingguys.com/TCG for our media hub.
Their website too.
Pest-X.com. You can learn all about their services. They have got quite a smorgasbord of things that they can offer in and around this thing. Thank you for tuning in today to the Closing Guys Pro Show. We'll be back next week with another exciting topic and expert in the field. We'll see you guys soon.